Welcome to the Bible Journey. Thank you for joining us as we get into the book of Exodus, and our chapter of study today is 38, and that's what we'll be looking at in this discussion of today. And of course, we have our guests with us, our panelists. That is Pastor Peter Nyaga. Welcome, Pastor, to our discussion.
Thank you so much.
And we also have Pastor Dan Abuya. Welcome, Pastor.
Thank you very much. Pleasure being here.
And on my right-hand side, we have Pastor Kabira Wakabira.
As appreciates.
Now, we want to start, of course, with a word of prayer. Let's pray. Mighty and everlasting Father, thank you for this opportunity to study from your word. We pray that you may be with us as we begin to the end. May your Holy Spirit be with us and also the viewer, and give us the understanding of your word, and may it convert us. In Jesus' mighty name we pray.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. And of course, remember that you can always give your comments or interact with us on our social media platforms indicated at the bottom of your screen. And now let's get into our discussion. But before that, maybe I would want us to just tell us a little bit in way of introduction as we get into chapter 38, what we expect, and the importance thereof, as we look at you know, the various other structures that were being made or constructed for worship in the tabernacle. Of course, we've looked at the tabernacle construction. We've looked at the Ark of the Covenant of the Testimony and the mercy seat. We've looked at the altar of burnt incense. We've looked at the table of shewbread and the golden candlestick. So now, up to there, pastors, I want to maybe, let me begin with Pastor Dan.
Right. So what we saw in the earlier episodes was the tabernacle itself and the internal furnishings. So this particular episode, that is chapter 38, it now brings us to the external, you know, furnishings. What is part of the courtyard, we will say, right here. So that is now what we have here. We're going to see mainly, really two things mainly. That is the altar or burnt offering, and then the laver, or the bronze laver. So these are really the main things that you find on the outside, and we shall have a look at that. But then also the chapter gives us a view of, it's like a financial statement, if I would say, because it gives an account of all the resources that were collected. So those are some of the things we shall get you know, a view as we study this chapter. Right.
And Pastor Nyaga, of course, these other elements that we have looked at, the various structures that we have looked at, and of course, the process of the construction and all these things, what was so significant in them?
Well, the choice was from God, but I think he went for the finest that could be available, just to signify the magnificence of the sanctuary. Perhaps to put a seriousness on who God is. He's not a cheap God, and that which is associated with him also should be given that seriousness. He deserves the best. To me, I think that's what I see. And so even as we look at this chapter, just continue with what we were looking last time on from chapter 37, just continuing putting in place, assembling things to have the sanctuary stand. Yeah.
And Pastor Kabira, anything more as we get now into 38?
It's the continuing theme of unity of purpose, where so many people, so many things, we see so many materials, so many people, so many various leaders being put together for a common purpose. So I think it's like Psalms 133 says, but maybe I will quote it and use it. Behold how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell, but I want to say to work together in unity. At this point, it's just beautiful how so many things to me, they're even confusing because by the time I remember what was first, now it's no longer there. But if you put everybody together, so many leaders of different angles, so many volunteers, so many materials, we will finally, by the time we get to chapter 40, we'll be able to say, wow, this thing finally has been put together. So it's beautiful when all of us as brethren put together our minds in unity for a common purpose. So I will say, when we are united for a purpose, united for a particular mission, and we dwell together in harmony, then it becomes a beautiful thing in the end. So I think it's the same theme that will be followed up in chapter 38.
Wow, wow. Now, in chapter 38, of course, we first of all encounter the altar of burnt offering. And of course, we already talked about it, but like we have been doing, I would like us to still continue the same formula, like for the viewer who is first watching this show,
Right.
they would be confused, altar of burnt offering. Of course, we've mentioned the others, hoping that they were with us in the previous discussion, but now it's been a while since we talked about the altar of burnt offering. What was this, and how can you describe it, and what was the purpose, Pastor Dan?
Thank you very much. So originally this instruction is given, we find it in Exodus chapter 27. That is where we have it. And I think it's not a long reading, so we can just have a reading and have a feel of how it looks like here. So Bezalel made the altar of burnt offering of acacia wood. 5 cubits was its length and 5 cubits its width. It was square, and its height was 3 cubits. He made its horns, at every corner. There's a horn there on its 4 corners. The horns were of one piece with it, and he overlaid it with bronze. He made all the utensils for the altar, the pans, the shovels, the basins, the forks, and the fire pans. All its utensils he made of bronze. And he made a grate of bronze network for the altar, and its rim midway from the bottom. That is its, its plumbing system, its drainage system. He cast 4 rings for the 4 corners of the bronze grating as holders for the poles, right? So you remember it's meant to be moved. So provision is made for each of these items for its portability. So the Levites can be able to carry it when they move the tent of meeting, or they move their camping site. And finally, verse 6, and he made the poles of acacia wood and overlaid them with bronze. Then verse 7, then he put the poles into the rings on the sides of the altar with which to bear it. He made the altar hollow with boards. So that is the description that we have here. It's also like a box. Yeah. I don't know if any of us has got the common measurements, maybe in meters or centimeters or feet or inches, that we can relate with. I know the cubits is a little bit.
You have some.
The size of the altar of burnt offering is around 7.5 feet, or 2.3 meters long and 1.4 meters high.
All right, right here. So that's pretty much, if the viewer can see the length of this carpet. Yeah,
It's almost
it's
2 something.
almost not so far
Yes.
from that here. So and its height here. So really, once again, of course, we are very clear that this is outside, because the cord there is bronze and gold. If it is overlaid with bronze, you find it outside the tabernacle.
And you said that is specifically because of the bronze outside?
Well, of course, the preciousness, the most precious things, we regard them with much more respect, and we handle them much more in a much more better way. Paul talks about our vessels, which are, parts of our bodies, which we hold with much more regard. And, you clothe them much more, more seriously, I would say, right here. So you protect them more. So the gold is found in the inside. Of course, it also shows perhaps not really the hierarchy of importance, but, you are headed towards the actual presence of God. So from the outside, going by the value of these metals that are used here.
Wow.
So, right.
Okay. And Pastor Nyaga, now what would be your view, especially on the significance of this particular altar and what it fulfills in the worship service, because I think it was the first one that you encounter after coming from the gate. You meet it, and there is where you spilled the blood, and I think there is kind of more of significance in that.
Well, the altar of burnt offering is where the carcasses, the slain animals for sacrifice were laid for burning, and so things were happening, because the animal is burnt to ashes, then the smoke ascends to heaven. This is sacrifice, and without sacrifice, there's no meaning to worship. The lamb which is being slain is Jesus Christ. So this signifies the cross, the death of Jesus Christ on the cross. So it's very significant in this particular worship. And so before even you come to access the Holy of Holies, or even the holy place, you were supposed to be allowed in through the merit of that particular sacrifice. That's why it was at the entrance of the sanctuary.
You had to shed blood first.
Yes, you access the residence of God. You access the heart of God, the home of God, through the cross. So to me, this is what it signifies. So that now we, of course, it in different terms could be called the brazen, or the brazen, and so those names. But significantly, it was for the burning of the action of sacrificing. When the lamb has been slain, then it was brought there, it was burnt, and remember, if God does not accept that particular sacrifice, traditionally we are informed that then the smoke would not, have an upright trajectory, which was an incident case of, is it Cain and his brother Abel. Right. So it was very, very significant that now you have received acceptance into the house of God, into the glories of God. So after that sacrifice, then you could get in with confidence.
Well, Pastor Kabira, want to on that?
And just to note quickly, the brazen term, it comes from the material
bronze.
Making it here. That's right.
Now, for me, I'm just appreciating the semantics as they are dealing with the application. I was trying to calculate, not really calculate, but see what's been left out of chapter 27 and chapter 38. Chapter 27 talks about you shall, that is in the future. There's a lot of you shall, horn shall be. But then by the time he comes back, of course we know he says, it was, he made, was made. That is in the past.
It's complete.
But it is so complete with the same way it was done. Apart from, of course, some two phrases that I want to dwell on, not really dwell on. The last part of chapter 27, verse 8 says, you shall make it hollow with boards, as it was shown you on the mountain, so shall they make it. Which basically means, it's the only part that is missing in chapter 38, which means that what God had ordered, it was fulfilled. That's what I wanted to say. But also, I want to include the human aspect of it. Chapter 38 is also the same thing, word by word, apart from verse 4. And he made a grate of bronze network from the altar, and its rim midway from the bottom. Midway from the bottom. Midway from the bottom is not available in chapter 27, verse 1 to 8. When it talks about, you shall grate for it, that is verse 4, a network of bronze, and the network you shall make 4 bronze rings at its 4 corners. That's all. But here Moses notes from midway from the bottom. And what I was getting was, God had a requirement, but it was so applicable, even in the human, adaptable to the human functionality without changing what God had ordered. That is what as I'm saying, it's what I was looking at. I was trying to balance. God wanted something, but it had to be functional. And that's where the human aspect, let me not call it the human aspect per se, but the common sense part of it is, as an artisan, he knew the best way to do is to put it in from midway midway from the bottom. That is all the way, the plumbing system up to the middle, so that the rest of it is functional, and then the plumbing system is, it may be some few words added, but I was able to appreciate how this does not contradict what God had said at the same time.
Because he had said, I'll fill him with the spirit.
Yes,
The
wisdom.
so
yes.
that he is able to do exactly.
So yes,
as I
God
instruct.
ordered. God ordered for a network of bronze, and the network you shall make 4 bronze rings at its 4 corners. That's what he had ordered.
Yeah.
But he did not go to say from where to where. It was now for you and your wisdom to adapt it to what is functional. I don't know if I don't know if you're getting this point yet, but
Yeah.
for me, I am appreciating that God designed it, did everything, but he allowed it to be a functional thing. He allowed for you to think, he may have given all the measurements and everything in it, but then there was a small part where now, come on, I don't have to think 100% for you. Make it functional, make it true, make it live, make it real. And as I was trying to look at everything else, really God knew what he was doing. But he also allowed man some small bit for his input to make it something that is functional. So that man does not say, this thing entirely belongs to God. He also had some small input in it.
We have to do something. And maybe I should ask then Pastor Nyaga. I'm trying to look at that in terms of they thought according to how the Spirit led them, and their creativity and all that, to make that altar functional. And so bottom halfway up. And I'm asking now, what is the part of my creativity, my thinking, my artistry, and whatever we may want to call it, in worship?
But I don't think that they thought. Because it has been very clear since we started discussions. Everything they are doing was as it was described. In terms of, sizes, the height, the width, material, everything. There was no room for them to imagine or to think or even to alter. I think in chapter that 7 we saw where they started constructing, they were keen to do exactly as they were instructed. Maybe the only thing which came in is the workmanship. Maybe the end product. Then their skills would be seen. But in terms of extending the measurements or reducing the measurements, I don't think
they didn't alter
they
that.
didn't. Yeah, they
But
didn't.
the only thing that, of course, which he has really brought out is in terms of in 27 verse 4, you shall make a grate for it, a network of bronze, and on the network you shall make 4 bronze rings at its 4 corners. Then, which is that verse exactly?
chapter
In
There is that
38,
chapter 38 verse 4.
verse 4. 38 verse 4. Of course, that was 26 verse 4. Now in 38 verse 4, now he mentions how it was, and he made a grate of bronze network for the altar under its rim, midway from the bottom. The midway from the bottom, of course, everything else is there in 26. But
27,
in
27, 1 to 8.
yeah, but in 38, it's not, there is an addition of midway from the bottom, which doesn't
it is
alter
there.
anything.
It is there in verse 5.
In verse 5,
27,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
Shall put it under the rim of the altar beneath, that the network may be midway
Up
up,
the altar.
the
right,
altar.
all right.
Right.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that verse. What we are learning here is God instructed Moses in the pattern of what you have seen. And Moses was exact. And we saw when we were starting chapter 7, Bezalel going exactly to the details. And when you see the comparison of or the parallels of these chapters from the previous chapters, you see actually they are not changing anything. It's to me, it's something very, very key. And I remember mentioning in our previous discussion that they are not adding or subtracting. They are producing what God has given.
Wow, wow. Now, moving forward. Now, and now as we proceed with our discussion now, in verse 8, it's about the bronze laver, which of course we again saw in our previous discussions. And The bronze laver. Now, what was this bronze laver, Pastor Nyaga, and the significance? What was it used for?
Well, I think again, if we go back to chapter 27, where we appreciate now when Moses was given, again from verse 1 to 8, we will get explanation of preparing this bronze laver. But I think what is important for us to note here is the bronze laver was made of mirrors, which when you come, it's like you are looking into the glass, glass that allows you to see and reflect on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, being made of bronze, again, we can share about the qualities of this bronze as a metal. But if I'm getting what you want me to address, the significance of the bronze is that this is where the priest who is getting in to do the sacrifice would come and cleanse himself. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Cleansing himself. So that now, it's like he has identified he has, like dirt, or he is defiled, or that before he starts handling the crucial matters of righteousness, so he would cleanse himself. Signifying that you need, even before you offer sacrifices, to be before the Lord and cleanse yourself, so that because you're going to atone for other people. Maybe that's one I could highlight. My colleagues also could come in and bring out what the things.
Mm-hmm. And Pastor Buya?
Yeah, just to add on what Pastor's shared, the detail maybe of this laver, it's a basin. And it is vividly described in chapter 30, verse 17 to 21. And it says 18 that you shall also make a laver of bronze with its base also bronze for washing. So it gives us the purpose. It's for washing. You shall put it between the tabernacle of meeting and the altar, and you shall put water in it. For Aaron and his sons shall wash their hands and their feet in water from it. When they go into the tabernacle of meeting, or when they come near the altar to minister, to burn an offering made by fire to the Lord, they shall wash with water, lest they die. So they shall wash their hands and their feet, lest they die, and it shall be a statute forever to them, to him and his descendants throughout their generations. So the new, it's not like a new detail, a different detail, but actually it's a clarification what Pastor's already offered that is given here in only one verse. So it is exactly that which was given. But now, this bronze, how it was achieved, it is what Pastor has already shared. Apparently, the Israelite women, they also had mirrors ya kujipodoa for sorting themselves out. So, and they are made of bronze. That is why you are able to have that reflection of your image in it here. Mm-hmm. So this was stripped of the bronze so that it was used in coming up with this laver.
Okay.
Right here.
Yeah.
The basin for washing. It's a basin.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Maybe we take a short break first of all. Then when we resume, of course, we'll be looking at the making of the coat of tabernacle, and I'll of course need the comments from Pastor Kabira on the issue of the bronze. So dear viewers, we are taking a short break. We'll be back right shortly for the Bible Journey. Welcome back, our dear viewer. Welcome back to this show. It's the Bible Journey. Thank you very much for sticking with us, and of course, welcome back, dear panelists, for our discussion. Now, in verse 9 all the way to 20, it's about the making, making the court of the tabernacle. Now, after, of course, making the tabernacle itself and those structures out there, the laver and the altar of burnt offering, now we have the tabernacle, the making of the court of the tabernacle.
That's right.
So we got the particular statement on what should be used to make that particular court. And maybe now, let's first of all try and understand, Pastor Kabira, what was it made of and what was the importance of it, because we said it was just kind of a fence.
The court of the tabernacle was there purposely to denote to denote boundaries. Let me begin by its boundary. To be able to show where the tabernacle begins and where it ends from. Where you need to tune your mind. Let me even put it like that. As soon as you get here, you tune your mind. Remember, the punishment for messing up in the tabernacle was death. So, of course, I will imagine God does not want you to die by surprise. In a real sense, you just walked in, then you are in the most holy place, and you're like, Lord, I didn't even know what was happening. So, of course, the first thing I will say is to denote boundaries. And God is fond of, I don't know if that comes out well, but He's fond of giving us warnings before. He does not delight in death, per se.
That's right.
So for you
the
to
Bible says
yes.
that, He does nothing without.
Oh yes,
communicating
thank you.
to
Without
his,
notifying
his
us.
prophets, right.
Ideally, if you walk past a fence, your mindset has changed. Where we are, by the time you get past the fence, you say, I am now in. It's the fence shows the separation between this side and this side. Mentally, you get prepared. I have seen people who will get on a plane. As soon as they get to the airport and land, even the English changes. Just by being in a different, in a different setting, all of a sudden you are using a different kind of language, just because you've noticed that you are now in a new setting. Then when people come by, you even wonder, is this the same person who was speaking to me? The accent is gone. Why? Because a boundary shows you have begun something different. That is for me. Of course, there was the other advantage that it held the priests where they used to live, their living quarters, and it also facilitated where some things were kept. But more importantly for me, it reminded everyone of the sanctity of the entire area. So you prepare yourself. And I like how there is incremental functioning of holiness. As you go deeper from the court, everybody will come to the court. Then you get to the next. If you wash your hands, and on the altar of burnt offerings, if it's accepted, you move on. When it's accepted, you move on to the end. That is important for me per se, because it helps me know that I am slowly working towards achieving my goal, which is to be holy. That is what he says, be ye holy as I'm holy. But because it's incremental, you teach yourself to be holy. From when you get into the gates, you'll not be the same. By the time you leave, you get into the most holy place.
Wow. Pastor Dan.
Yeah, indeed. There's something, that boundaries do to the mind. Yeah, it quickens your conscience to obligations, to responsibilities, to the demands upon you. Yeah, and so I think this is very important, as already has been shared by Pastor, so that the common and the sacred is clear. There is clarity. Of course, there is the obvious also functions of protecting the tabernacle, what is in there from the elements of weather, from other intrusions and trespassing, both for the people, even for the animals. So those are obvious ones. But most important is the spiritual, the emotional, implications of having a boundary, because it tells you that, not beyond here. Or if you're going beyond here, then you have to be in a particular state in your heart. Otherwise, you might, you'll go this at the expense of your life here. It talks of a loving Father in heaven. And we have a challenge today. you have a challenge today. You know, in our generation, everything is relative. There are no standards, there are no boundaries. There are, talking of the millenniums and the Generation Z, that is the youngest generation now. I mean, for them, structure, there is no structure. There are no boundaries. They don't care about, authority. I decide with. There is nothing like that. There are always boundaries, demarcations. There are always structures in God's world. Because then it is also a sign of humility on your part to acknowledge that, I mean, you can't be God over yourself. You're no authority over yourself. So I do appreciate that there was, the court was made, this boundary demarcating. That is your common living spaces. And now this is
a sacred.
This is a sacred place, a holy ground that you're stepping in. So come, tread softly.
Wow.
Right.
And Pastor Nyaga, and also appreciating the importance of the gate and how it's constructed, and of course, I think gates have a significance in this life too.
Thank you, Temo. I think appreciating the boundaries is indeed, God saying, this place belongs to me. And he has done that in other incidences. You see, like he gives Sabbath and says, this is a sign between me and my people. God has a way of identifying or marking his people. I think marking in the scripture is very key. He places marks on his people. He has a way of identifying his people. He also has a way of identifying what belongs to him. He has a way of identifying what constitute his presence. You see, like he spoke to Moses and told him, he watched Moses walking close to him. But there's a point he came and told him, okay, stop there now. So from there, come me this way. This is my presence.
All right.
So to me, it's the same thing he's doing with the sanctuary. So that, and as we said the other time we were discussing, so that once you come to that fence, then I can play any other place outside there. But once I start getting in here, then I'm coming to the actual presence of God. That was very clear. The gate then is very significant then, if that be the case. So if you're getting in, as you pass the boundaries, getting in, you're getting into the presence of God, you are nearing God, you're accessing God, then there is only one way of accessing God. God has not given two ways of accessing him. There's only one way, one formula. Call it obedience. It is one way. And this gate is Jesus Christ.
Amen. Is the way.
It's a way.
The truth and the life.
The truth,
the
life. You can't access God using any other means. It says by me. So it's very, very significant. It's very, very significant, so that we appreciate that there will be no any other way for any believer, any Christian or any person, and this can go out even to when talking about religions, with all due respect to every other religion. For humanity, there's no any other way of getting to God than Jesus Christ.
Right. And I just want to add, I'm trying to look for the text, maybe somebody can help me out. In the great I am statements in the book of John, one of the I ams that Christ says is, he says, I'm the gate.
Yes.
I am the gate. And so anybody who must enter through me. So really this is significant. Remember, we are talking of the type. All these things are types, and they are all shadows for shadowing the antitype, the actual, the reality. And so I think really John summarizes it perfectly well.
John 10, 9 to 11.
Maybe you can read, Pastor.
I am the door. This is King James Version. Maybe you can appreciate a different version, which actually will say, I am the way.
Which says, I'm the gate.
Yeah, I'm the gate. We can appreciate a different...
that's 10,
yeah,
verse
10
11.
from verse 9,
All right.
Let's
11.
appreciate a different version. I know we must get one that talks about the gate.
John 10, verse
9.
9.
9 to 11. Eh? Yeah, it says.
Okay, I have it here. I am
Okay,
the gate.
I am. No, is still the door in this version, New King James. You have a different version.
New International Version.
Mhm.
I am the gate.
All right.
Whoever enters through me will be saved. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
New Living Translation, I am the gate.
Right.
Then Berean Study Bible, I am the gate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that aspect.
You know,
of
really,
him.
really was all these things, and I know Deuteronomy, Leviticus, those episodes, seasons will give us some opportunity to delve more into the full symbolism of all these things, the festivals, the timings, and so on and so forth. But perhaps nobody puts it better, summarizes all the exercises and the elements we are talking of here than John, when he says in John 1:29 that behold
The Lamb of God.
the Lamb of God. What he's saying is that, okay, listen, ladies and gentlemen, everything we have been doing all along, look at that.
Pointing to.
That is the consummation. It was always pointing to him. Yeah.
And
Right.
sometimes I've been looking at these, the way God makes, instructs, and the way they make all these items. And there is a acacia tree, and
Right.
then overlaid with gold, overlaid with bronze,
The
overlaid
internal
with,
articles,
you know.
right.
And I'm looking at it and asking myself, because these are metals which last longer.
Right.
Is God communicating in any way an element of permanency in terms of this worship, or doesn't it speak anything like that in terms of just something that would last maybe for a long time, if not forever? Before I come to Pastor Kabira, of course, as we get to from verse 21.
Well, I'm glad some of these items, they betray or they reveal the mind of God to us, and his character. He is not trivial, he's not frivolous. I'm definitely glad that God did not command Moses to use clay, for example, in making some of these articles. They were on the move. The people were on the move.
Yeah.
And so I want you to imagine if you're the Levite on duty, and you try to carry the Ark of the Covenant, it falls down and it breaks.
But
I mean,
again, if you look at it
right.
again from the other angle, if they made it of just wood, it would be lighter to carry, and if it gets broken, it's easy to repair.
Well, but then it misses the glory.
It misses the glory.
The glory, it misses the dignity, it misses the preciousness. Remember, we read about Romans 7:12, I think Pastor shared, talking about the covenant of God, the law of God. And it said that it is holy, it is good, it is perfect.
Yeah.
So all these aspects, that is God to you. Everything is rounded up in one, a perfect package. Because you're looking on the lightness, and then what about the glory of God? So you can look at the economy of it.
I wanted to tell Temo,
Right.
he's thinking typically the way we Christian think today, looking for conveniences.
Right.
God does not deal with conveniences. No. He says, the standard is very high that God has set.
Right.
It is either you meet the standard or not. Salvation is delicate. That's why you cannot have one step in, the other step outside. You cannot serve two masters. It's a simple start. He says you cannot place your hands on it and then you look backwards. So it demands total concentration. That's why carefulness of handling it. So it is glass. It is either you're carrying it all the way or you break it. So don't ask him to give us timbers.
Do you see anything of in terms of permanency in that, or it doesn't apply at all? Because they overlay the acacia with gold,
Right.
which is long lasting. They overlay it either with bronze,
Right,
and
yeah,
then even the hooks themselves of the court,
Right.
that particular fence is bronze. Right. Not like you'd get some phytos from somewhere, tree branches, and the way we do it back in our rural villages. it's something that, you know, this thing that would last. Is he communicating anything like permanency? This worship is something that should last?
Not really.
Or the, okay.
It
okay.
is
Yeah, that's what
communicating,
I-
is communicating quality. If you want to say about for worship, it is communicating preciousness. Preciousness is key. You have no idea how precious our salvation has come. The death of Jesus Christ. You can't estimate the cost of that.
Wow.
So that's why all this thing is being wrapped with the most expensive metals. And even when we talk about the acacia tree, then it was the most expensive tree to afford then.
Sure.
So it's just telling us, guys, salvation is expensive.
It has a cost, a
Yes,
big cost.
my son
Now-
is. I mean, you can't give any money for my son.
Let's now get to verse 21 all the way to 31. Now, here is about the materials of the tabernacle. And, you know, these people they gave all that they could. And it was very, very important. And, you know, it was a free will offering. Not forced, not standard set that you should give up to this, or this is the minimum, this is the maximum. There's nothing like that. But they gave bronze, they gave silver, they gave gold. Let's just try and appreciate the materials of the tabernacle, Pastor Kabira. What do you see here?
First, I would say, let me appreciate this guy called Ithamar.
That's the youngest son of Aaron.
He is in charge of inventory.
All right.
He's in charge of records.
Right.
And this guy is thorough.
Wow.
That is what I was able to appreciate.
Right.
I just saw what it was said in chapter 20. He just mentioned casually by passing, but then he does some good inventory. No wonder people had confidence in Moses.
Wow.
And because this being a young man, he put records of even the smallest gram. If you get what I mean, like he took the records of everything, big and small, and he put a total record of it. Well, you may look like what he says. Just as an example, verse 24, all the gold that was used in all the work of the holy place, that is the gold of the offering, was 29 talents and 730 shekels according to the shekel of the sanctuary. Then they used to not measure with kilograms and grams. So to our equivalent here will be like kilograms and grams.
Yeah.
He does it into not just kilograms. He says even to now the littlest grams.
Right.
So literally if the assumption that is there today is that 29 talents, a talent is equals to 34 kilograms. So I did a calculation of that. So you will imagine 29 times 34. I didn't do the totals of that. What I was doing was the total in amount of money, like what he was in charge. 29 talents times 34 kilograms. And then those kilograms now add 730 shekels, which per shekel is 11 grams. Then if you put the total together, all that will give you around 994 kilograms of gold. 900, you know, the shekels differently and then these others differently. If you put the two together, assuming, of course, I was reading today's conversion of gold, that is 4,237 per gram, not per kilogram.
Per gram.
So
Or
literally,
dollars or the same.
no, that is in Kenyan shillings.
Okay.
I will convert to USD for purposes of our viewers who are not from Kenya. That is 4.2 billion Kenyan shillings, or 420 million US dollars worth of gold.
Wow.
For people who were slaves just some few months ago. Don't forget.
Yeah.
For people who are in in a very funny place. They gave until they had to be told. I'm imagining our own. This will be enough to run an entire department of our, of our government, an entire ministry.
Right.
Yet he was faithful to the end. So, of course, if you do the same to the silver that now follows up there,
25.
25 and 26, the congregation gave 100 talents and 1,775. Then every man, verse 26, gave a beker of silver, also gave a beker, which is around half a shekel. All of that will total up to around 3,419 kilograms of silver. And if you put
How much is a shekel?
a shekel, once again, a shekel is 11 grams. It's our translation today for purposes of, especially those of us who use kilograms and grams, is 11 grams. I mean, 1 talent is around 34 kgs. So if you just multiply, I'm hoping that this will be able to be shown.
Yeah, on the screen.
It comes to around 343,664 worth of silver.
Wow.
So in total, this guy had just, I'm saying just for gold and silver, he had worth 4.6 billion worth of, I don't know. I'm just trying to imagine this young man is in
US
charge.
dollars?
No, that is in Kenyan shillings.
Kenyan
In
shillings.
US, in USD for purposes of those of others, I know this is a lot of details. Is 460 million USD, and yet he was accountable for every single one of them. Many of us are given a budget of several thousand shillings, and within some few minutes, we don't even know what happened. It's lost. When you ask, you say it's a lot of money. But this young man was able to physically put a record.
Right,
Look at even verse 22.
Yes.
Gives the record, and those who did. He not only had the record of things, but even when Bezalel would come, he knew what Bezalel used. He knew what Aholiab used. He knew all these things because he knew them and what they were doing. So for me, that is a particular kind of detail that is impressive. But of course, more impressive was how these Israelites were able to get all this. Of course, it takes
To
us to
give
back
all
when they
this.
can be able to afford anyway. Sorry for that.
Yeah.
Maybe what I can add to what Pastor said.
Yes.
Thank you for that details, Pastor. Some of us may not be able to appreciate so much about these details until they are brought out in simpler terms.
Sure, sure.
But I think God is also communicating to us and the churches. Though we are faithful members of the church, there's need for transparency.
All right.
There's need for accountability. If I'm a pastor, I'm dealing with the church finances, I should be able to account for every coin. Not because members doubt whether I'm faithful.
Yeah.
You know, we have this attitude. We give Pastor Dan 10,000 shillings to go and buy some things for the church. And because we send Pastor, we know Pastor is faithful. So there's no need of asking for receipts and how you
receipts,
spend
yeah.
it. I think
And
God
the
is not...
balance of 20 shillings.
Yes.
Right,
So if we appreciate the details that this young man is giving us in this team of construction, then we have a lot to learn.
Wow.
And I think it is telling us, actually, the church should lead by example.
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Pastor, your final word.
Well, I'm most grateful for this particular chapter, the element of accountability, and I guess, you know, as a church, if you haven't been giving the financial report, let the treasurer do this at least monthly, at worst quarterly.
Yeah.
Let people see how they're giving us pin the trends, so that not only confidence, but also faith in how the Lord continues to provide for them in spite of their maybe frail little givings.
Wow.
Right,
Let's also give the balance of 12 shillings and 50 cents.
Even 1 shilling.
Even the smallest cent, it's valuable to God.
If there was
Right,
transport involved, let's not say, okay, you know, you can even see
You
from
can round
here
off.
to town is around 20
You know,
shillings.
people rate their contingencies.
Contingencies. No, it should be
No, we
going
will
higher.
round
no
off to the
contingency.
nearest 100. Round off to the
Or
nearest
you
100.
round off to the nearest.
No.
Wow, thank you
Right,
very much,
yeah.
our dear viewer, for being with us on our discussion today of the book of Exodus, chapter 38. We hope to meet you or see you next time as we discuss Exodus 39. Just 2 chapters remaining before we close this Exodus season. It has 40 chapters, if you haven't noticed.